In this edition of Southern Newsweek, Ministry of Justice staff take a closer look at the issues facing the historic courthouse. Will they save the site? We'll find out why the agricultural sector is going to benefit from the hard work of one local scientist. And student representation on the University of Otago Council is halved, despite a last-minute compromise. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. The Ministry of Justice has revealed the complex issues it's facing with earthquakes strengthening Dunedin's historic courthouse. Staff have toured the iconic local building today, but they're still not fully committing to saving the site.
The courthouse is very quiet nowadays. Another facility is hosting the city's courts, and Ministry of Justice staff say a number of ongoing issues are keeping it that way.
It can't be strengthened easily. Because it's a Grade 1 listed building, we have to protect the exterior fabric of the building, but tie it together in such a way that it strengthens it for the long term and it becomes a resilient building.
Structural work is needed above the ceilings and below the floors, and the connection between the building's interior and exterior needs to be strengthened. The Ministry of Justice is working with heritage advocates to get the court up to standard in a way that retains its current form.
The big issue is the tower area and the possible drop zone and how that ties into the buildings around it. As you would have noted in your tour, there's high vaulted ceilings and those elements are not always structurally strong.
Ministry staff are developing a business case for work on the courthouse, which should be ready in August. That needs to be accepted before any work is approved. Strengthening the courthouse is expected to cost taxpayers more than $10 million.
Well, as the Minister signalled, it was always our intention to return to the building and to restore what is part of an iconic part of Dunedin. But that process does take time.
So locals frustrated with the lack of progress will have to keep waiting, as behind-the-scenes work continues to decide the future of Dunedin's courthouse. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
And a civic push to save the courthouse is putting pressure on the government. The City Council is launching a task force to lobby the Ministry of Justice over the building's future. And that's come as local members of the judiciary highlight the facility's significance.
Sitting empty but not forgotten, the Dunedin courthouse is closed while the Ministry of Justice decides whether to spend millions on necessary stabilisation. And the government's dithering is frustrating locals, including civic leaders.
I'm amused at what's going on. I cannot believe that this is a political decision to duck that responsibility. And being charitable, as I always am, I can only assume it's a bit of bureaucratic incompetence by someone within one of the ministries.
The government says it may have a business case for courthouse repair in the next couple of months, but it would likely be a year before that goes to Cabinet and several more years before work's done. At present, there's no commitment, prompting local lawyers to speak out.
Where there's a will, there's a way, and in my submission, this council can be very much part of that will, can put forward the way, can provide some of the expertise and support to ensure that it happens.
She says the council's moral and political pressure is for the good of the city.
This is probably one of the most iconic buildings in Dunedin, along with the registry building and the railway station, and it speaks for itself in terms of its importance to our city.
And there's huge local support for the retention of the courthouse, with at least 100 University of Otago alumni from around the world adding their voices to the cause.
If it was allowed to fall into disrepair or disuse, then of course it would lose a lot of its significance. It is full of history.
The temporary courthouse in High Street's considered less than ideal, and users hope they won't have to put up with it for much longer. Rosie Mannins, 39 Dunedin News.
And years of international research is paying off for one University of Otago scientist. Staff at the Department of Microbiology and Immunology have been looking at ways to ensure plants can defend themselves against infection. And it's the agricultural sector that's set to benefit.
Getting a closer look. Professor Clive Bronson is part of an international research team looking into the relationships plants form with bacteria. And after several years of research, they've made a discovery.
We've discovered the plant receptor or protein that surveils the environment of the plant to recognise this polysaccharide and distinguish whether it's good or bad.
What the research team have discovered is that there's a type of dress code when it comes to bacteria. An outer coating that Ronson says a plant can recognise as being either good or bad.
Bacteria can sweet talk their ways into a plant, that if I've got the right dress code, they're allowed in, they're conducted to the table and they can feast and enjoy a mutual interaction with the plant. If they've got the wrong dress code, then they're essentially thrown out, they're denied.
The research is a collaboration between the University of Otago and a handful of international institutions, led for the past 8 years by researchers in Denmark. And Ronson says being able to pool knowledge and resources is beneficial to the research.
We made a discovery about this outer surface being important, and we then talked to these folk in Denmark, and it was recognised that there's tremendous potential to use the plant genetics that they have and the bacterial genetics that we were providing to try and really understand how the plants are recognising these bacteria. So that was the start of the collaboration.
Ronson says now the goal is to discover whether good bacteria can be manipulated to be most favourably recognised by the plant, opening up a raft of future research avenues to keep the international team busy for the next 8 years. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
Basketball Otago is rising from the ashes with help from a major financial grant. The embattled organisation has received several $1,000s in funding, and that's led to an all-time record turnout to a skills development program.
Jam-packed. Almost 100 kids participate in this Basketball Otago skills development program. It's been made free, thanks to several $1,000s of funding from a local trust, and that's prompted these record numbers.
We usually only go 1 week, and we're usually lucky if we get over 30. And so we're wrapped with the turnout that we've got,
Brock Banks says extra coaches and volunteers have had to come in to deal with the numbers. Some of those coaches are prominent Kiwi basketballers. They've got the kids playing a wide variety of games and drills. A good experience to introduce local kids to life on the court.
A lot of the kids who don't play basketball came because it was free, which is good. It's
been a challenging few months for Basketball Otago, but the organisation's running full steam ahead now, back in local hands. Brock Banks says it's great to see the group's fortunes changing.
I've always said that basketball's been strong in Otago. The financial issues aside, we've always been strong at the grassroots, and this is proof of that. Our competitions numbers, our development program's been good, everything's been good at the base of the organisation.
Everyone's hopeful the record turnout will see more kids playing here in the future. But for now, the focus is on the court and teaching these tweens a thing or two about basketball. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Widespread opposition has failed to stop the University of Otago Council from axing one of its student representative positions. Students attended a council meeting to protest the move, but a last-minute amendment to retain both student council representatives was shot down.
Fronting up in protest, Scarfies make their way into a university council meeting, opposing the removal of a representative position. But the council voted in favour of its draft constitution, slashing student representation in half.
We are incredibly disappointed. This is something that we've been working incredibly hard on for the last month. I know Paul, our president's been incredibly invested in this, working incredibly hard over time just to make sure that we could get as much appeal to the students to sort of get the support.
More than 1,500 students signed a petition against the representation cull, and the Student Association also encouraged Scarfies to speak out through social media, as there are concerns about how effective a single student rep will be.
Because students are such a diverse group, especially because we've got about 18,000, it's unfair to expect one person to represent every single constituency that we have. I mean, we have such a diverse range of people who come from overseas and might not share the same values that we do. We've got people that are here on exchange. We've got students that come from a whole wider different backgrounds of people from farming villages, etc.
Councillors were divided over the change, prompted by new legislation limiting the council's size. It's forced the reduction of members from 20 to 12. Some say students have many other avenues to be heard, and challenging times mean the council needs as many highly skilled members as possible.
I think the important thing to take away from this is while the council itself has decided to remove a student seat, the council members individually are very open to sort of alternative avenues for the student voice to reach them.
Yu says it's a disappointing day for the local tertiary population, with students paying the price of new legislation. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, a local MP proposes changes that could improve some employment practices, but they're already being dismissed. And we find out which local school is attracting national attention in go-kart circles. Welcome back. A Dunedin-based MP says his changes to employment law will rein in unfair business practices. Michael Woodhouse has announced a raft of measures to tackle things like zero-hour contracts, but they're being dismissed by some as window dressing.
Unfair worker contracts could be a thing of the past because of upcoming changes to employment law. Dunedin's Michael Woodhouse is putting forward measures to tackle things like controversial zero-hour contracts. He says arrangements where employees are expected to be available for work with no guaranteed hours are unfair, and they'll soon be against the law.
It won't mean necessarily that there has to be a minimum number of hours, and we're not dispensing with casual agreements. I think they still have an important role to play in New Zealand's employment landscape, but what we are looking for is fairness and flexibility on both sides.
Woodhouse says he's been looking into ongoing issues around contracts. While most bosses don't take advantage of employees, Woodhouse believes a small portion cause problems. He says there are three main issues his changes to employment law will tackle.
That was the principle of mutual obligation, the requirement to be on call without any compensation, and the prevention on being able to go and pick up other hours with other organisations. All three of those things are going to be fixed.
Dunedin North MP David Clarks told 39 Dunedin News the changes effectively go nowhere. He says zero-hour contracts are still in place under the proposed law tweaks. He feels the contracts need to be fully outlawed to protect workers from being taken advantage of. Woodhouse says communication solves most workplace issues, but measures are being put in place to deal with major problems.
We have beefed up the Labour Inspectorate. We have a very comprehensive mediation service, and employees who don't think they are being well treated will be able to go to MB's Labour Inspectorate or the mediation service and seek a remedy.
Clark and Woodhouse share concerns over local workers being taken advantage of with things like zero-hour contracts, but they're divided on whether the new changes are the solution. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Another 48 local business internships are being lined up for summer with fresh funding from the City Council. The Sexy Summer Jobs business internship program is in its 8th year, and those involved expect it will continue to boost the economy.
With summer on the brain, Chanel O'Brien sorts out the next lot of business internships. As the project coordinator for the City Council's Sexy Summer Jobs program, she's just made a successful bid for $72,000 of additional funding, set to benefit local tertiary students and professionals alike.
So if a student or an intern performs effectively, there's a good chance that they will get a job. And in fact, in general, normally 1 in 2 interns will receive some kind of position, full or part-time or contract work.
The program started in 2008 and has resulted in almost 300 internships at local businesses. From the 48 internships this season, 24 new positions have been created.
The program is successful because it's business driven. That's the real key element to it. It's about the business's needs, not so much about what interns need or want, but really what the businesses are looking for.
The latest funding comes from the Council's Economic Development Strategy budget, and O'Brien says the program enhances the local economy in several ways.
It comes very clearly under an economic development objective under a theme we call Hub for Skills and Talent, which is about actually looking at what we have right here in the city and how we can retain and attract and retain the talented people that we have already and help them grow, thereby enabling businesses to grow.
By linking Otago University and Polytechnic students with Dunedin-based commerce, the program reduces the cost and stress often associated with the appointment of skilled workers, easing the way for all parties involved to the wider community's benefit. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
3 local designers have received top honours in a regional architecture awards ceremony. Brent Alexander, the man behind the redevelopment of Nichols Garden Centre, has been given an award for the building's design. He's transformed a rundown diesel workshop into a garden centre and cafe. Julian O'Sullivan has received awards for work on the town hall and an office building. Judges have praised his work as an appropriate, sumptuous revitalisation of the facility. They're celebrating his work on a Ravensdown office as well. And architect Rhys Warnock has received an award for his work on a house built near the city. Bal McEwen Intermediate is receiving national recognition from a kart racing organisation. The school's now on Kart Sport New Zealand's Honours Board thanks to pupil success in a nationwide contest. And the event itself is also generating kudos for the city.
Waving the flag. More than 60 kart racers compete in this year's National Schools Championship, held in Mosgiel. And Kart Sport Dunedin club members say the major event puts the local racing scene on the map.
And this is second on the calendar to the New Zealand Nationals, so it's the New Zealand Nationals, then the New Zealand Schools, so this title is extremely big. The winner, especially of the mini rock class, wins a trip to Italy for a drive in Italy, so yeah, very, very big event.
Racers have come to the city from as far as Auckland and Invercargill. The strong local showing comprised about a dozen teams. And Dunedin pupils had tough competition from some highly acclaimed Kiwi kart drivers.
We're lucky enough to have Ryan Wood down here as well, who's last year's National Schools champ, and yesterday took it out again and to make it the two-peat and obviously off to Italy.
Arfield says kart sport's popularity is increasing locally, and the Dunedin cadet racing class is one of the strongest in the South Island. He says there's also a lot of second and third generation karters in the city, and that's paying off.
A big achievement from one of our local members today, Alex Patrick, took out second in the Vortex Mini Rock, and that's a massive achievement, so very excited for him.
While the major victories went to Wellington and Christchurch drivers, local racers are being praised for their efforts, and the city's celebrating a successful championship with lasting benefits. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, the efforts of one sea lion are immortalised in a newly unveiled sculpture. And we chat with the winning designer of this year's wearable art show, who's no stranger to first place. Welcome back. A new piece of public art is telling the story of an important local animal. The life-size sea lion sculpture commemorates the return of New Zealand sea lions to the mainland after more than 150 years, and it's hoped it'll help raise the public profile of the endangered species.
Gathered to celebrate an important part of the city's wildlife history. The New Zealand Sea Lion Trust's unveiling a life-size statue depicting a female sea lion dubbed Mum. She's credited with bringing her species back to the mainland of New Zealand, and trustee Neville Pete says it's important to commemorate such a significant sea lion.
The New Zealand Sea Lion Trust has raised the money for this and presented it to the City Council as a gift, and hopefully, you know, people will get the story, because there is an information panel that goes with this sculpture.
The piece is the work of well-known broad-based sculptor Bryn Jones, with the 2-metre-long statue made of polystyrene and a hard finish to withstand the St Clair sea spray, giving it the longevity needed to inform the public for years to come.
About 20 years ago, she re-established her species on the mainland of New Zealand. She was born on the Auckland Islands and came up, migrated onto Otago Peninsula, and then had her pup at Tyree Mouth in 1994.
It's extremely rare for wildlife to reintroduce themselves to the mainland, and with the New Zealand sea lion being the rarest species of its kind in the world, Pete says Mum's role in bringing her species back from the brink can't be overlooked.
She's something of a wildlife phenomenon. in a way, because we don't have many stories of species that are making recoveries like this. But most of her kind actually live in the subantarctic islands of New Zealand, in the subantarctic zone, and there are about 10,000.
Pete says the Trust is proud to be able to show off the sea lion comeback story, with hopes the sculpture will not only herald the return of the species, but also help raise the animal's profile within the city. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
A sibling rivalry between Dunedin and its sister city Shanghai is being started through table tennis. Chinese players are in the city, seeing the sights and preparing for a major sporting contest. And their training camp's been kicked off with some unique views.
Smashing shots on Signal Hill. Visiting athletes take a hit at Dunedin's table tennis scene while overlooking the city. This game's been a long time coming, with Otago Table Tennis spending half a year organising the visit.
It's in conjunction with the Dunedin Shanghai Sister City Association, so it's their 20th year celebration, so they were very keen to support us as well. So I think it's really good to share some of the coaching knowledge and on both sides.
The 8-player delegation is in the city for a major table tennis contest. Duffy says they're all highly skilled athletes, and that'll make for some exciting matches throughout the week.
We've got some pretty strong players here as well in the national training squads and also in the regional training squads. And when the Otago Open happens on Saturday, all of New Zealand's best male and female players will also arrive in town. So to be quite honest, I actually don't really know what's going to happen.
A morning run to the top of the hill warmed up visitors and locals alike ahead of the hilltop practice session. Duffy says it's a great way to break the ice and kick off a table tennis training camp that'll run throughout the week.
Over that time we expect to exchange different techniques between the Chinese coaching staff and also our local and national training staff, and have some kind of competitions as well before the tournament so everyone's prepared.
Duffy wants this exchange to become a yearly occurrence, and he's excited at the prospect of more international table tennis players competing locally, as well as what a bit of friendly sibling rivalry could mean for Dunedin's growing Chinese connections. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
And finally, just over $12,000 has been raised for Plunket through a local fashion show with a twist. The Cadbury Couture wearable art event attracted hundreds of spectators at the Dunedin Town Hall. And for one designer, it's a case of double victory.
The winning design in the 5th annual Cadbury Couture fashion show, made by Dunedin woman Jenny Thomas, the creation won first place and the People's Choice Award. As required, it utilised Cadbury chocolate foils, embellished by local materials.
Seaweed, which I found on our beaches, and the toy, the nice local toy. So that was a nice touch to be able to bring that into it.
Thomas also won last year's event. Her Golden Dream design came to mind after she saw a dress worn by Carol Lombard.
I loved that whole mermaid sort of look that they had down the bottom, so I knew I wanted to do that. So that was probably the inspiration behind it.
25 people entered the awards, attended by almost 400 spectators. And Thomas says she was thrilled with her garment's appearance on the runway.
I looked and I thought, yeah, I don't care what happens here. I'm actually really proud of it and pleased with it. Yeah. So.
Organisers say the show's attracting more entrants each year, a great thing for the charities that benefit from proceeds.
Couture is all about bringing charity, couture and fashion together for an event. So what Couture is about is we encourage people to get as creative as they can with our Cadbury foils, and we raise money, or as much money as we can, for our chosen charity.
Plunket's receiving just over $12,000 from this year's event, a part of the city's week-long annual Cadbury Chocolate Carnival. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Please do visit our website, dunedintv.co.nz, where you can download Southern Newsweek and watch individual clips of 39 Dunedin News, webcast the show, or even download it as a podcast. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on Air.